the whole sweeping opportunity and the sweeping value case from a customer's perspective is very clear and very strong. It needs to be done in the right way, and to kind of Lars's point around, my life savings suddenly disappear to an account, and unexpectedly. We obviously that sort of thing can't happen. But starting with sweeping, very logical, very logical jumping off point. We're assuming and we expect that over time, VRPs will, on some basis, evolve into the broader payments world, and we think that makes sense because there are clearly use cases where existing payment methods either aren't optimal at all, or for some segments of society, perhaps aren't quite right. But we are concerned at the same time about some of the consumer protection type points that Duncan was making, and actually I think a lot of those apply to open banking payments more generally. Single shop payments, if you like. The scenario Duncan referred to of the holiday. The holiday issue. What happens if I pay for a holiday on my credit card? The holiday company goes bust. I'm protected. If I pay on with an open banking payment, I'm not. And so one has to think quite carefully about the kind of consequences of some of these sorts of things. And that's not unique to VRPs, but I think it's even more so with VRPs, if you see what I mean. In general, in payments, the kind of 99% of the work is on the exception cases. The what happens when it goes wrong. Duncan articulated it very well in terms of, the current assumption is that all PISPs behave appropriately. I'm not sure that that's a sustainable long-term answer for the ecosystem. I think we need, as an industry, to think quite carefully about how we create the right frameworks for ensuring the right customer protections, not just for VRPs, but for all payments use cases using open banking. I also think that that there's a really interesting conversation to be had about the economics. Frankly, depending which bit of the bank you sit in, you could see open banking as being kind of a regulatory overhead with no business case, or you could see it as kind of an interesting way to generate more faster payments volumes on the receiving end. I don't think either of those is quite right. We need to find an economic model where the incentives are appropriate, but also that kind of where work is done, it's being appropriately rewarded. So I think there's some work to be done on both of those, but I do absolutely think if we get it right, open banking payments generally, and within that VRP, has a hugely important role to play. It creates competition. It's additive to the landscape, if you like, of payments options. If we think about direct debits is a huge success in the UK, but it also has problems, some of which have been articulated today. And every time you do the consumer research, there's a set of customers who don't like the lack of control that they perceive with direct debit. And so, one has adding more payments options that appropriately meet customer needs on both the payer and the payee side of things has got to be a good thing for innovation.